My friends, welcome back to the Smoky Mirror Podcast, where we dive deep into the creative minds that are shaping our culture and inspiring us all. My name is Jordan Jones. I'm your host and fellow creator, and I'm on a mission to spread knowledge and inspiration to help people like you leave your mark on the world. From artists to musicians to entrepreneurs and more, join me as we explore the intentional act of creation and the forces that drive us to do God's work. This episode is brought to you by Become Strong Cookies. Unfortunately, I was not able to go to the facility and get some for you, Ann, so I definitely owe you at least a cookie or two.
You totally owe me a cookie, man. That's my favorite.
I definitely owe you.
Those are fire.
But shout out to Become Strong Cookies, bngnow.com to buy your cookies. And we actually have a discount code CK97 in honor of my friend Chaz Kirkland. Take advantage of that, 10% off. But today I have a true fighter in the building. Her name is Ann-Marie Saccarauto, Hall of Fame boxer, 3-time WBC champion. And she has an incredible story that I'm really excited to get into, but I want to thank you for making the trip, Ann, and thank you for clearing your schedule.
No, I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So I met you at Symmetry Fitness at the grand opening, because that's where you train at.
Yes,
where you train folks at.
Correct.
And, I did an interview with the owners there, and I was meeting people, and they're like, "Oh, you got to talk to Ann." And so Ann gave me like a elevator pitch of her life, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like it sounds like a movie or a book. Like we definitely have to sit down. And this was literally like last year, and so I wanted to make sure that things were put in place to have a high quality interview for her, because I think the story was that much worth it. And so I'm really excited to get into it, Ann.
It means a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's start with your background. I know one of the things you shared with me was you had an abusive father, but it's one of the things like you learned from your mom to really fight and persevere. So let's just talk about that.
Yeah, I grew up. My father was abusive. Never to me, more towards my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what instigated or started the whole divorce proceedings between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I grew up with cops at my house just about every single night. And then through the divorce, I wouldn't go to visitation. I never wanted to go. And for whatever reason, I never was forced to go, but my brother did and ended up, he was forced to go to visitations for whatever court rulings or however they judged that or justified that. But he would come back bruised and battered. So he was abused. So it's just like going through that. That's what, at those points, on top of the fact, just to add, my father never paid child support, never paid alimony. So we grew up in just complete poverty, like where electricity was shut off, the stove was our heat. That's what I was growing up in.
Mm-hmm.
But
this is New York too.
Yeah. This is New York. I had that fighter mentality. That's when I really started to understand that fighter mentality and that I was different. There's something different inside of me that I was born with. And in those moments, I remember distinctly saying, you know what, I'm born with something different inside of me. I know I'm destined for greatness, and what I have within me, I want to give out to the world. And that's where the thought of even becoming a professional athlete came to be. And for me, it was going to be my platform to be able to inspire others and give out to the world what was inside of me, what is inside of me. It also sparked that protector nature that both myself and my brother, my mother as well, obviously, but strongly have within ourselves. We're out to protect my brother. My brother went into the Coast Guard. He was a first responder at 9/11 with the fire department, Air National Guard, U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Marshal. He's currently serving on police force in Mississippi. So it's like there's a protector with him. And then me, life down the road, going into boxing, I realized that was another step. But everything that I went through in growing up and just the adversity that I went through, I feel is what kind of was prepping me for what destiny had in front of me at the time when boxing came into my life. And recognize, and I'm glad, thank you for saying I'm a fighter, because it's not that I'm a boxer. I'm a fighter first and foremost. Right, and those are the things that I think is very important, because anybody can learn a martial art or a type of combative style, right? But that's a skill.
Right.
What do you have inside of you that's going to progress your success in the ring, in the cage, on the mat, in life? Right, and that was something that was always very important to me. But those standards of me being is what was developed from the adversity and such that I went through as a child, and what I saw, what I was around. That's what built that fighter, that warrior spirit, that protector nature inside of me, to the point where I do protection work now. And there's other steps that might be taken in that direction. So we'll see where life takes me. But
Interesting. So what was going through your head when, like you're saying, it's cold, they're turning off the power.
Yeah.
How did you know, like, oh, there's something different inside me? Like, what was it?
I don't know. There's just different feelings of strength. Like, I wanted to do something to protect my mother. I wanted to do something to protect my brother. I knew we were going through, this hardship, continuous hardship. But to me, it was just, I don't even know if I could put it into words. There was an actual moment, but it's like I felt this warrior spirit inside me, almost like I was not to sound corny or cheesy, but it is what it is. I felt like this soldier, and I was like, okay, I have to prepare for something. I didn't know what it was because I'm still a little kid, right? But I was going in my room, push-ups, squats, jumping jacks. Just I'm like, and I didn't really know why I was doing it. But fast forward to doing what I do now, and I do a lot of mental coaching and mindset work too. It was me prepping my mindset, because what we do physically is what prepares us in terms of our willpower and where we're willing to go, how far we're willing to push ourselves without even me knowing it. Something greater that was in me that was telling me to do this. And it was pushing my mindset mentally to deal with. It was probably my escape in one way too.
Right.
Looking back on that, and just a release of emotion of what I was feeling. I was taking out through my training. But it was developing my mindset to deal with that adversity better, and just to keep my calm in the chaos around me. I think as a youth, now looking back on it now.
Yeah. I love how you said that, because like if you run 3 miles and you're dying on mile 2, but you push through it, that does a lot for your mental. So then
100%.
You're sitting in line at the grocery store and somebody steps on your shoe, it's not gonna be as big of a deal because you know how to handle yourself.
Right.
I love how you said that.
In that distress, even in training, what I tell my fighters, what I tell my Gen Pop clients, this is where you're building your mental strength, your emotional strength, your emotional intelligence, even. Those standards at which you live by are being developed in how far you're willing to push yourself in the scenarios of that gym physically, right? Because you're in full control of that. And you start to realize, I am in full control of how I respond or react and then want to proact to things in life and adversity that you feel, because now you're being tested in the gym. Same thing I tell my fighters. So listen, you're going to take yourself in training, especially when they're going closer to that fight, and I'm pushing them a little harder, to where you're going to take your opposition in that fight. They haven't tested these waters yet. You have. You're going to know what it feels like. And it's the same thing that transfers into life. We deal with hardships in the gym. We want to achieve that failure of reps or of a 1 rep max, right? But for whatever reason in life, we don't look at things that way. Not recognizing that us pushing to that quote unquote failure, that's testing ourselves. Okay, let's go back and let's get it again. What do we do wrong? What can we learn from that? What patterns do we develop that is improper to achieving the goal in the gym? Those are the same patterns. What do we develop in life from childhood, dealing with things that's giving us that same circle that we kind of fallen in life?
That's really powerful. I love that you shared that. What was the first sport that you got into?
I got to be truthful on that. It was probably ballet.
Really? Ballet?
Not that I got into, but my parents growing up, I remember my youngest, maybe at like 3 or 4 years old, I was doing ballet and gymnastics.
Okay.
But in all honesty, that's probably where my athleticism developed from. And awareness of movement, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where it started, and then quickly transitioned into basketball was my first love. I said we were poor, we didn't have anything. We had a tree out front of my house, and the tree kind of split, and it was pretty much the same height at where a basketball hoop was. That was my basketball hoop because we couldn't afford one, so I would use that tree, and every day I'd be in the street, get it through right.
Tree.
Yeah, man. And so it was basketball. I grew up playing basketball, volleyball, softball. Those were my three things throughout grade school, high school, into college. I was recruited by several colleges and universities, and I ended up going to Seton Hall University after the car accident. I did a year there, but really I was already my senior year in high school. I started getting to an internship if your grades were good enough your senior year, and they just started this program my senior year. You can go out and get internships instead of going to school. So qualified for that, and I was working in a gym. I didn't know which direction I wanted to go in, but I knew it was going to be physical. Whether it was going to be physical therapy, being a strength coach, whatever have you. So I was at a gym that had all elements available.
Cool.
And I studied, and the car accident happened, which we'll get into. But after the car accident, I had redshirted my freshman year, went back to college, and was competing. I was actually recruited to play basketball and volleyball for Seton Hall University. I went there, and they didn't want to allow me. There was a discrepancy with one of the coaches. So they're like, you know what? You sign on to volleyball first. You're going to stay with that, and then we'll discuss you crossing over and playing basketball as well. Because what happened with how I got recruited to Seton Hall was I was at the school meeting with the volleyball coach, and I had this vision. I heard a story of somebody from Rutgers going to see the school, and they got picked up by the basketball coach just shooting around. That's exactly what happened. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get to the school early. I'm going into the gym, and I'm going to shoot around. Lo and behold, I went in there. I went into the gym. There was a couple of guys in there. I didn't know they were the Seton Hall basketball team or a couple of players off the team. And the men's coach was in there, and he thought I was a woman's recruit. He comes up to me, and he's like, are you here to see Phyllis? What's her name? I was like, no. I said, who I was there to meet. He said, no. You're going to come with me. You need to meet Phyllis. And then she talked to me. So that's how it all stems. But I ended up only doing a year there because they weren't going to give me the scholarship that they had talked about, because then they didn't want to give me onto the two teams. They were only going to hold me to one. But also me going back, and when I would leave school, I was back in the gyms working as a strength coach. And, financially, because of everything that I was also going through, it was something that was just in me. I was like, you know what? That spirit of I want to actually live, and I can learn, and I could go to all these other courses that I was doing research in terms of strength and conditioning and my education outside of that, and I could start to make money and build my career and my name.
Right.
And figure out where else athletics, for me personally, professionally, is going to come into play. So one way or another was going to happen, and that kind of is what developed into my boxing career along the way.
Got it. Well, let's get into the car accident, because I think that is it's a crazy story when I hear about it, and I think it's really a testament of what's possible when you believe
100%,
and you have your mind set to it. So let's just talk about it.
Man. The craziest part, I think, about the entire accident is I knew it was going to happen before it happened. So, even to go back to my childhood, like I had this feeling inside of me of who I was and what I was supposed to do. And I hold true to that. So that's one thing, like in terms of being successful in life, it's, you want to have a goal, a vision, a why that is ultimately inspiring, not just to yourself, but to others around you.
Right.
It has to have a greater meaning than for yourself. Right. But you also have to have this instinct and intuition that you believe in to follow. That's very, very important, because that you have something that's telling you what your mission is. And it's a lot of times people, they don't pay attention to that, and they start looking for all this other stuff and start listening to the noise that's out there instead of what's really existing within themselves. God blessed me with the ability to do that and knowing my why and my purpose, and I followed that. So when in following that, I knew this was going to happen, and I kept having this feeling that my senior year in high school, something like threatening was gonna happen to me. And I was gonna overcome it. And I told my best friend that at the time. And my summer after my senior year, it was 3 days after my 18th birthday. My birthday is August 2nd. This was August 5th. I was leaving with the team, the volleyball team, for the Empire State Games in New York. We were going upstate to Syracuse University, I believe. And all the teams would go on these buses. You would meet at certain venues, and everybody would go up together. So my mother had dropped me off, and I get onto the bus, wave goodbye to her. And as I'm waving goodbye to her, this feeling shoots through me. What if I never see her again? You don't think that at 18 years old, you go into a competition, but that's what I felt.
Yeah.
And kind of just shook it off and went up. And going back from the games after competition was over, I was originally going to go back in the coach's car. Someone was scheduled, so he couldn't go. And then somebody else was going to take me, and I was like, no, for whatever other reasons, 'cause I knew they were meeting like their boyfriend or whatever. I was like, I didn't want to be, third party.
Right.
So, and I ended up in another car, which ultimately was the vehicle that got into the accident. So it was my captain and teammate in the front. I was sleeping in the back. I fell asleep sleeping in the back. It was a monsoon. It was pouring. It was torrential rain. I fell asleep in the back seat of the car. Now, we couldn't fit, I had a pillow with me. We couldn't fit my pillow in the trunk of the car. I fell asleep on my pillow. This comes into play because I remember sleeping, and you know when you have a dream and you feel like your body spinning?
Yeah.
I remember feeling my body spinning. It was the car that was spinning.
Yeah.
And we ended up wrapping a pole. It's the driver's side that hit, wrapping the pole on the northbound side of the highway. I got shot through the back window of the vehicle. The pillows would save my head from any head trauma.
That's crazy.
Which was vital because that's one of the main reasons why I survived. So I remember hanging out the car unconscious. I was unconscious, but I can remember feeling the wet.
The water.
Yeah, and it being dark. And I don't know to this day if it's the reality of what I experienced or if it was my mind, wanting to create this image. But, that light that everybody says that they see. Like, I want to say it was just dark and there was this, like, little circle of light that was, like, coming at me. Mm-hmm. And I can remember it so vividly. So I don't know, but that's what I remember. And the other thing I remember from that car accident was being on the floor, on a baseboard, and asking the paramedics if I was going to die. And their response was not, if we can help it. Nice. So that was the accident itself. A stat flight was on the scene. Weather was too severe. They drove me down on advanced life support. They stabilized me at a local hospital, drove me on advanced life support down to Westchester Medical Center, which is a trauma 1 center, where I did somewhere between 14, 18 hours of surgery. They had my family in a private room. They said I wasn't supposed to make it through the surgery or through the night. When I woke up, true to God, the first words that I said out of my mouth were, "What about sports?" And the doctors said that I was never going to compete again, flat out, and that I may never walk normal again. My response back to them was, "You have no idea what's inside of me. Watch me." I don't know where that came from. My mother had talked about that. My brother told me about that. Because I was on every drug imaginable, but that's what came out. Ask me anything else after that, couldn't tell you. But I had broken my left femur.
I was going to say, I can read it all off because I had it here.
Let's do that again. Left fibula and tibia. I'm losing my mind. Left fibula and tibia. I have a metal rod through that. I had nerve damage because where the break is also where glass severed it. So I had no feeling in my left leg. And that's partly why they didn't want to, or they didn't know if I was going to walk normal again, because they didn't know if the nerve was going to regenerate itself. I'm still missing some feeling in my left foot to this day. But it's crazy because I'm getting more feeling, more proprioception. Sometimes I get really crazy nerve pain and I can start, like, all of a sudden I can start feeling my toes like moving. It's the nerve damage is weird, but it's still definitely to this day coming back a little bit.
That's crazy. I
broke my right femur. I have a metal rod through my femur. I broke my right hip bone. Had metal leg contraction for 6 to 8 weeks, if not longer. I broke all the ribs on my right side. I punctured my right lung. I shattered my right ulna in 5 places. There's a metal plate there. I tore apart my chin. I was in hospital from August 5th of 95 to a week before Halloween, and then I was in rehab a week before Halloween to a week before Thanksgiving. And then, true story, the day that I left the rehab, I went home. I ran upstairs to my room. I put my bags down. I got changed, and I ran out to go for a run with my mother absolutely yelling at me.
Was it in October when you had gotten out?
Yeah, it was a week before
Halloween.
A week before Thanksgiving.
That's crazy. That's only a couple months.
So what? No, well, August, September, week before, August 5th to a week before Halloween, I was in the hospital.
Okay.
Week before Halloween to week before Thanksgiving, I was in rehab. I would go against the grain on everything they would tell me. Like, this was my one free limb, so I would use like little like triangle pulley thing. I would be using that to just get myself up, to be able to sit upright. I had bands on my bed. Whatever I could do, I was using my left arm to do. They didn't want me to sit up for long periods of time. My legs were in these passive motion machines because they're both broken, right? So they would be manually lifted up and down. But I was in bed rest. Like, I was on my back for about 8 weeks.
Wow.
So the first time that they let me sit upright, I got nauseous, right? So they're like, gave me limitations on, only doing it with somebody who was around and certain amount. And I went against absolutely everything, even to the point when, I wasn't allowed to be weight bearing on, I believe it was this leg for longer than this one. And I just decided I was going to be weight bearing. Like I got up, I stood up in front of the doctor, I walked in, he was just like I went against absolute, don't do this, don't watch me do it. The whole time during my recovery and healing in the hospital, I went against the grain to everything that they told me. I could do, can't do, did the complete opposite.
And there's something really interesting about that, because it's almost like we get trapped by the limitations that we put on ourselves or that other people's put on us, and we believe it. And it's almost like if we can somehow, because it's like you want to trust experts, but at the end of the day, you also want to trust yourself and know, like,
you are the expert.
Yeah, I'm the expert of my body. I know what I can do, and it's crazy what you can accomplish when you have your mindset like that.
Well, think about even in world records, right? It's a world record, and then somebody sees, oh wait, I can do that, and they go out and they beat it.
Yep.
And say, okay, this is possible, and this is possible. So it's all within yourself. There's no limitations other than, right? It's cliche, but there's no limitations other than the ones that you do place on yourself.
What happened to everybody else in that car?
The driver died. She had all the injuries that I had. This is what I was told. She had basically all the injuries that I had, but she had head trauma.
No pillow.
Now remember, her head took the impact.
The
driver's side is what took the impact. My legs took the impact.
I see now.
The front passenger, she had minor injuries just from glass. A broken nose and slices from glass.
So she just walked away from it. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well.
But it's like, again, talking about that mindset. That mindset was instilled when I was telling you, I was preparing for something, not knowing what it was when I was younger.
Yeah.
It's the lead up to that.
So you were 18 at this point. I was 18. And so you would already decide, I'm going to Seton Hall. And the doctor's like, sports, you might not walk again, but you're like, no, that's not. That's not really a reality. So you were training and everything, and you went to school like it was nothing, right? Is that really what happened?
That's 100% what happened.
Wow.
And the thing is that my senior year, like I said, I started this internship in the gym.
Yeah.
And I was learning about weight training, and I was putting myself through the paces, If the doctors told me if I hadn't been weight training, even though I was already doing athletics, I was already, doing plows, I was playing basketball. If I hadn't done that year of training prior to, my injuries, everything that was broken probably would have been shattered. And it could have cost me ultimately my life instantaneously. But they said because of what I actually had done within that year, they really believe that had a lot to help in my recovery, as well as me actually surviving it, and that just being breaks rather than everything being shattered. Because again, we hit a pole. We hit a metal pole.
Yeah, that thing's not going anywhere.
Do you know what I'm saying? So, and then after the recovery, when I redshirted that year because I was in the hospital for half of it, that's when I started I started studying Jeet Kune Do, which is the martial art that Bruce Lee had created, basically like street fighting. There was a coach there that had studied it his whole life. He's traveled around. And I just did it because it interested me.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine was like, listen, she sent me something about Golden Gloves. And I was like, because, I want to compete. I always want to compete.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, so I can punch. I was like, so I can't kick. I can't do any of these other things that I'm learning. I'm like, okay, what the hell? Yeah, I'm just going to go into Golden Gloves, right? But that's my mindset. Who cares? So I end up talking to an instructor, one of the boxing instructors at the facility. And he's like, oh, yeah, I coach other people for amateur boxing and for the gloves, come down to the gym. So go down with him. I had maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe of hitting a bag. And I found myself in the ring. And mind you, this was not an individual who cared about my outcome in the ring. Because he would go in my first day, he was like, okay, the bags are there, 10 rounds, and he left the gym. I had no formal boxing training, coaching on any level. He didn't care. He just wanted to, for whatever reason, be attached that he has another fighter or whatever his thought process was, right? But again, that unfortunately, years back, that was also, women in boxing, female boxing, a lot of guys, their mindset, and it wasn't what it is now, But I ended up in the ring at Gleason's fighting The national champion at the time, she was, I think, 22 or 23-0, and then there was me.
That's nuts. And how old were you at the time? 19, 20?
I think I was 20 or 21.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe early 20s, we'll say, probably like 21. And then that night we went at it, and I just fought. There was no boxing. It was just
just fighting.
There was no. I did not deserve to be in that ring under any circumstance whatsoever. But the craziest part is, after the third round, we both threw right hands, and she broke my nose. With 30 seconds left, they stopped the fight. A woman who's was a very prestigious coach in the amateur game, does a lot with USA boxing, I believe, to this day. She comes to me and she's like, listen, we have an extra ticket, right? We have an extra ticket to the U.S. Nationals on Sunday morning in Midland, Texas, because I don't know if an athlete was injured or whatever have you, couldn't make it. Would you like to go?
After getting your nose broke.
I have no business being in the ring, first of all, period. You want me to go to the Nationals? Like, but this is, say, you follow what's being given to you because there's other things that are greater than us. Right? That's out there. So I'm like, yeah. And that's the other thing, like amateur boxing, Olympic style boxing is really the name on it, because it is different than regular boxing, right? Just the rules and how it goes. So we'll be official. Olympic style boxing. What was I going to say to that? What's that?
Well, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
I want to get in. What's the difference when you say Olympic style boxing?
Yeah, so the rules are different, right? In professional boxing, it has your scores are, your knockdowns, knockout,
right?
Ring generalship, command of the ring, control of the ring.
Yep.
In Olympic style boxing, it's a point system. So if we're going at it and I tag you up 20 times in the first round and you knock me down in the pros, that knockdown is going to hold more weight than it does in amateurs because it's the amount of points that you landed 7 clean shots. Even though you got that knockdown, I landed 20 clean shots. I have the round.
Okay.
So even the power of the shots, like it's more just the speed and the tempo and the connecting, right? So I go to Midland, Texas. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So even with the injury that I had, for me to compete, normally it's not allowed.
Right.
But I go and I compete, and I fought bleeding all over the ring. They wouldn't even stop the fight. And it's not that I was like losing, but you touch my nose and blood would just pour out.
Right.
And they let me keep fighting, which again is not part of USA boxing. Like that's not normally allowed. And I literally fought to the finals, where I meet the same boxer in the finals. A week later.
National champ.
I meet her in the finals of the Golden Gloves a week later. And we fight and we slug it out.
Crazy.
She beats me again, right? And then I fought her. I think
pissed at that point. Or
you know what? I don't think. I mean, I don't believe that I was pissed. I don't think it was. That wouldn't be my nature so much. It's more of, I knew who she was. And I'm like, damn, again, But I'm like, all right. But it was just levels to it. Of I knew there was a long road ahead of me that I needed to go down. But it showed me how much I was really drawn to this competitive nature and to the truth of it being of any combat sport, right? Mm-hmm. That shows you the truth of who you are inside, what you're willing to go through, what you're willing to face. So it's an ongoing scenario that plays out in my life, and people have seen me fight. I've been told a couple times they see me and it's like they've told me it's my life in like this living script whenever I'm fighting. I'm in there, I'm having fun. I'm going to put it down, and I lay it down, and I'm all business. So it's really your truth and your fears, or your lack of, or your overcoming, and, your emotional strength, your spiritual strength. Everything that you have within you is being faced and confronted in that ring.
Right.
And I loved every part of that because I always want to build myself to a next level. What am I truly capable of? So I fight her again the following week in the finals of the national Golden Gloves now, lose. And it was like, after that, let's go, and it was game on. Fought her 3 times in 3 weeks, broken nose, 2 black eyes.
And that was like your first time fighting.
Like, I like this, let's go, challenge me.
Wow.
But it goes back to that mindset, So I trained, and the next year I came back and won the New York Gloves. I won the national gloves. Gentleman that was working with me at the time was like, you should go pro.
So wait, pause before the pro. Were you actually being trained, or were you training yourself at that point?
In all honesty, I mean, look, my This is true story. My very first sparring partner was one of the presidents of New York chapter of the Hells Angels.
Really?
That was my and God bless him, we got very, very close, and I love him to death. Yeah, that was my very first sparring partner.
That's funny.
My second real sparring partner, one of the greatest females, Hall of Fame inductee, Alicia Ashley, incredible pro, and it was like sparring Ghost. Like I just like get hit and she's gone. Like awesome, you know. But yeah, I mean that was how it got, you know, brought to fruition of me, or brought to the reality of, okay, I'm going to do this on my own because nobody's giving me the actual time and effort to put into me.
Mhm.
And then there was, you know, somebody did, and then kind of just left me for somebody else that he thought was a bigger cash cow.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's me as, you know, the rugged, the tattoos, the hair, and then there was, you know, the prettier, more female, feminine version. Oh, that's gonna give me, you know,
A bigger bag.
yeah, you know, I can't. That's I don't know if that's fair to say. That's my perception of the situation.
Sure.
You know, and everybody has their own journey and their own reasons, and you know, more power to. Again, more power to me though, because you gave me even more will to do what I want to do.
Right.
You know, and it was just that internal drive of, you know, pushing myself, and I'm gonna get this done just like I do anything else. One way or another, I'm getting this done, and it's gonna be on me. Cool. That's my entire life. That's all that I know is on me.
Mhm.
Growing up as a kid, it was on me. My mother was out, you know, working. It was me and my brother. I'm gonna take care of him. I got this. You know. And even as a pro though, it was a majority of my career. What people don't know is it was me, myself, and I. Because I had a full workload of clients. Where I was in the suburbs outside of New York, so I was primarily in Westchester. My boxing, where I trained out of, was first in Yonkers and then at Gleason's in Brooklyn. But to get to Gleason's, I mean, New York City, New York traffic, like Miami,
It's crazy.
an hour to 3 hours to go 40 minutes, you know, and I didn't have the money to train for the tolls, first of all, gas, paying coaches, like all those things that go in, and I didn't have anybody backing me. I had no sponsorship. I was working 7 days a week every year, years straight on top of year. The only day off Christmas, getting literally 4.5 hours of sleep if I was lucky, you know, and training for world title fights. And I didn't have a coach or real sparring until I actually had a contract for the fight. So a majority of the time was just me, myself, and I on a bag in the ring doing drills, just constantly pushing myself. And to the point where even when I would show up at Gleason's and they would be like, "Who are you working with?" I'm like, "Nobody." Like they a couple times they got a little bent because they thought I was working people outside of them, like maybe behind their back, or whatever they thought. Because like, you've gotten so much better. I'm like, it's just me. This is what I'm doing. And it wasn't that I had the best boxing style. Like I was probably more technically sound outside of a fight. And the fight, it was just like, all right, game on, let's go.
Right.
And but it's because I didn't have the coaching discipline. I had the discipline to maintain under that stress, to learn how to stay in that technique. And it just came, I'm going to be raw dog and let's go. You know, I had it enough, but I wouldn't say I'm the most technical boxer. It was like, we're just going to handle business. Sometimes, you know, move around. I had fun in the ring. You know, I had a lot of good footwork, dancing around. But there's a lot of ways where I could have gotten a lot better if I had somebody actually gave me that time on top.
So you're really just doing this for the passion and for the
everything
love
that I do. That's the way I live my life. Everything's about passion and love. That we have this one life. I'm talking about living life. Live, like capital LIVE. Live. This is a gift every day. Every day, I thank God. I'm blessed. I don't have so many things that I would like to have, and the ability to actually live the life that I would like to live in terms of traveling and experiences and being able to have money so I can do those things, and money that I could, you know, be a part of, a benefactor to certain associations that I believe in and want to help out with. Like there's so many things I want to do and I can't, but I do everything that I can do to keep striving towards those goals and ultimately stay on point to what my first mission that I recognize of myself is, which is to inspire, empower, and impact as many lives as possible on the daily, from a place of love, light, strength, passion within my heart, to do the same thing, to just go after everything that you want in life and, you know, own it all. And that's where my brand, Rise is spelled RYSE, and that's something that came to me too, maybe when I was in my 20s, and it's just kind of evolved and developed, and started with I just saw rise spelt with the Y, and I was trying to figure out, why am I seeing this? And it came to my head, all right, realize your strength every day. And the strength is physically, mentally, emotionally. There's also the avenues that you go down, you face when you're in that ring, or when you're in adversity in life, right? Physical, mental, emotional levels of strength, and spirituality, if you throw that in. And it's evolved to also raise your standards every day. What's the standard that you're holding yourself to? And then continually working to raise up yourself and to reignite your soul every day, your spirit, your passion. So that's how I live my life, with strength, spirit, right, soul, and your standards, right? So if you think about that, those three elements, when you wake up in the morning, it's like you're priming yourself for the day and for your goals ahead for the day. And then you can also be grateful for the things that you have, because you know every day you've been pushing towards it, and grateful for the path that you're continuously on towards what you want. Right? And that's just how I live my life, right? And it's how I look at life, and it's what I strive to continue to give to others, and why I firmly believe I've had the challenges, adversities in my life that I've gone through and dealt with them the way that I was blessed and grateful to have the mindset to deal with, so that I can transcend that onto others that I come in contact with. Which is why, you know, I'm blessed to be on this podcast. Absolutely. I'm blessed to do the interviews, any interviews I do. I'm blessed to, you know, you mentioned earlier the PBS documentary, and there's another documentary that I did. I have a song written about me on iTunes, which is it's pretty cool, you know. But all those things, it's not like this. It's this. I'm like, thank you, because that's what my whole mission in this life is, to give out to this world. Remember, I told you when I was a kid, what's inside of me, by any means that I possibly can. So I'm grateful for that.
I love how you really put that so eloquently, explaining rise, impact, inspire. What was
empower?
Yeah.
And empower, impact, and inspire.
Yeah, that was great.
And that's something that's been, I said, it's just been part of my protocol. And that's what's even through boxing. Like, man, there were times I exhausted. Because like I said, I was working 7 days a week, you know, 4 hours of sleep, nonstop. And the way that I push myself in the ring in my own training, I'm pushing my clients. So that's energy I'm giving out to them, right?
Right.
And man, there are days I would be training or go for a run, and there's also, you know, there's a lot of negativity that you also deal with in the fight world. I mean, in life in general, in any avenue, right? And just some negativity that I would see and deal with, and what I was pushing through, and my purpose to why I was doing what I was doing, it would just get to me. I'd go for a run or train, and like tears, and I'm like, why am I crying? It wasn't that I was sad. It was just so much that was built inside of me, you know, that. It's like, all right. And at those moments, it was really the challenge of, again, going back to, why am I doing this?
Right.
And in those moments where I felt, you know what, maybe I'm going to step away from this, because there's too much I'm taking on. You know, I'm human. As much as I'm like, go. But you have those moments. Be real with yourself. Right. In your vulnerability, you find your strength, right? I would go home, or I'd go to the gym, and I'd either get an email or a fan letter, email from a fan, or a fan letter, not even sometimes from the U.S., from other states, of how I touched their life, or they saw a documentary, or they saw my fight, or they heard my story, or whatever. And always at those moments, and I was like, because it's greater than me. Yeah. I got to keep pushing.
That's great. It's so nice when you get those moments. It seems so insignificant when you're writing a letter to somebody, let them know, like, oh, who knows if they'll see it, but it can have a huge impact. Absolutely. Especially when you're going through the day-to-day grinding, literally like blood, sweat, and tears. For sure. And I mean, to see it actually touching people and inspiring them, I know that's a great feeling. And I think it's funny how you go through all these things and you're like, damn, like, why is this happening to me? But like, maybe it's because you're meant to be a catalyst for other people. Like
100%.
I think sometimes people don't have that perspective when they think like, damn, like my life is fucked up, or like things are happening to me, I don't deserve this. But it could just be setting the stage for you to be an inspiration to other people.
100%. Because you go through it, you know how to deal with it. You're lighting somebody else's fire within themselves, right? It's you being the TD Jakes, you know, he talks about crushing, and it's you being crushed to be developed into something else. He talks about, you know, wine, grapes being crushed to become wine. It's something that much better, right? Yep. And when you're a grape, and he talks, I just heard this the other day, so it's still in my head fresh, you know, about grape, and everything it has to worry about, like disease and locusts and this, that, the other thing, going bad, going wrong. When you're wine, you get better through time. It's more quality, right? It's more quality. So it's like, you know, even that little perspective, you know, on life, on the outlook, but that's not how I see it. That's just a way to put it into the reality. But that's, you know, exactly how I see life. The things that, you know, I go through. Okay, what can I learn from this? I'm gonna get stronger. Man, this sucks right now. No, you know what? Okay, I can handle it. I got it. This is going to make me stronger. I can go back to the gym, the adversity that we put ourselves through because we want to get stronger in the gym.
Right.
You have the same outlook into life. I'm going to climb to the top of that mountain, and at the top is the most beautiful peak, but, you don't realize that as you're going through all the adversity, getting up there.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to get back into boxing just because you're the first boxer I've had on the show, so I do want to talk about some fights.
Let's go.
So first of all, talk about the transition again from going amateur and then going to pro. You said the guy was like, "Oh, you should go pro."
Yeah, he was like, "You know what? Why don't you go pro?" Actually, he's an older guy. He must have been in his like 80s.
Wow.
He was like the old guy in Rocky. His name, he went by Kid Sharkey. God bless him. I adore him. And he was like, "Yo, kid," he's like, "You should go pro." And I looked at him like it was crazy because I'm like, and again, I'm realizing I'm like, because I have a great amount of respect for any sport. I'm like, just turned amateur. Like, shouldn't I like wait a little, get a few more fights? Like, but then this other coach that was in the gym that was working with me, the one that was 10 rounds and leave.
Yeah.
You should do this. You should listen to him. And then he brought in individual that used to work with Mike Tyson, in terms of Tyson's management. And this guy looked at me and he was like, yeah. This guy ended up being no good anyway. He was not the most positive, but he at the time, and that's again, talk about adversity. Like, good, I'm give me these people in my life because you're going to keep pushing me. And I listened to him because of his background. And I went pro, and to go pro, listen, all you gotta do is go down to New York State Athletic Commission, you sign a piece of paper, fingerprint you, take your medicals, and you're pro. That's it. Okay. Simple, easy peasy. And he was part of my team. He was working with me, a little bit of coaching, managing. But there's a lot of things that I saw in his character that I didn't like, but and you start to learn, and there was things that I picked up on him, but I'm grateful for because there's things that I started to see in others in the game that ran consistent to characters and traits of, it's the fight game. Who are you really looking out for? You're looking out for your fighter, or you're looking out for others that you might have ties into.
Right.
There's a lot of things that go on. That's not always, but there's definitely, just like in any job, you have 5-10% that is not the best or, underhanded. So that's why I went pro. And my first fight was in a smoky ass bar in, I don't even remember. I want to say, goodness, maybe Maine, somewhere up northeast, which I won, and I had a couple of really shady fights, and then next thing I knew I was fighting in Manhattan. It was really cool. It was like Fat Joe was there, and Ice-T. They're in the dressing room. I'm like, oh, I like this. Like, it's cool. What's up, guys? And then I had the opportunity. I like I told you, I was always working. I never went away vacation. Ever. Never took time off. It was just the grind. Like, I can't take away from my dream. Any moment away is not taking me in that direction. I had an ex of mine that for Christmas surprised me with a trip to go to the UK. Wow, this is great. Awesome. While I'm in the UK, and again, never take time off. So it's like the one time for a week I'm away, I get a call that there is the opportunity for a title fight. What? Now, mind you, I'm like 6 fights into my pro career. And not just any title fight, WBC, which is like, that's the most prestigious belt in boxing.
Right.
So I'm like, okay.
You're like in London somewhere.
Yeah, for real. Like, that's legit how it happened. And it was like, it wasn't even like I had time. It was a short notice fight because who was supposed to fight I think she got injured. So I had like 6 weeks to prep for this.
Wow.
So it's me. So yeah, game on. Let's go. Came back. And the day that I signed the contract, I had this vision. Again, like these things come to me, but they play out. I always wanted to have some type of documentary or film crew or something at the time, like follow me to show what it's like to really be a female athlete. And again, going back to my story, and again, part 2, I want to give out to the world what's in me. It was either the day that I signed it or the following day, I get a call from PBS. Hey, we've heard about you. We want to do a documentary on you. What?
It's crazy.
And so I have a documentary crew with me 24/7 everywhere that I went for those 6 weeks leading up to the fight. They came out to Canada for the fight, and we're in Canada doing media and whatnot, and everybody everywhere that I go, they're like, "Oh, this girl's knocked out our past 7 or 11 opponents, and how dangerous she is." And my answer, they're like, "How do you feel going into this? What do you think?" Blah blah blah. She hasn't faced me yet. They would ask more questions like, "She hasn't faced me yet." Right? That's again how I look at life. So I went in there with the crew and we battled it out, and she hit me with an incredible hook, which is what she's knocked out everybody with. And I felt it, and that guy upstairs, he kept me on my feet because my legs were wobbling, and something told me just keep moving, move around the ring. And my legs were like this, but I kept moving, and I came back and I ended up taking her belt from her.
In Canada.
In Canada. On documentary in front of a packed house. She's still to this day a massive name in Canada. I have a massive amount of respect for her, and she wanted a rematch a few years later. We did the rematch, and then I beat her again.
Nice.
So that's what kicked off full throttle into my career, which then led me to the next fight, which was it Jessica Rakoczy? Yeah, I believe it was Jessica Rakoczy on the next fight, next title fight. Now that fight, this girl I have the highest amount of respect for in the sport. Ultimately, I mean, that was a true warrior situation, and I wish that the saddest part is that it wasn't televised. And it's still to this day known as one of the top 5 fights, if not the top fight in women's boxing history.
They don't have a recording of it anywhere?
So the promoter who actually reached out to last month, and it's in New York, and he has to go back to New York, and he's going to try to hunt it down. It's at his home or his studio in New York. And he's still doing promotions now with bare knuckle, and I believe he's tied into the UFC. So he's traveling all over the place. But I had the other copy. Everybody asked me for this copy or copies of it, and I would never give it to anybody. I had an individual that wanted to do some promotional work for me maybe 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and he asked for the copy. He's like, "Listen, I'll put it onto," he was gonna like digitize it, or I'm not good with technology, but he was gonna bring it up so I could have it on the computer.
Yeah.
He lost the copy.
Oh no.
So I'm trying to hunt down that copy. But that fight, we went literally toe for toe, toe to toe, 10 rounds, shot for shot. It was an absolutely epic battle. And we had said before the fight, we wanted to put on a really good show for women's boxing. And we knew, the caliber that we both had. We both had a lot of respect for each other going in. And it was like the 6th or 7th round, and I came back to my corner. I knew it was close. Now, it's close. On all counts, it's going to go to the other girl.
Right.
It's her hometown. It's her casino.
Right.
And I went back, and all I just kept saying to myself, I didn't even hear my corner. I was like blacked out to him. Just believe. Believe. That's one word. And I came out in the 7th round, and I rocked her. I didn't know how bad. I ended up breaking her jaw and her orbital. And I didn't know she couldn't see out of the eye for the rest of the fight. Still battling. 9th round, I mean, we're shot. We touch gloves and we lean on each other. And we were just like, "You tired?" Like, let's put on a show. Like, we had a conversation like that where it was the respect, and we were just kind of laughing, but we were both just battling and we loved it. And, at the end of, it was that shot that I landed on her. She went down. Did she go down on that? I think it wobbled her. And then in the 10th round, with 2 seconds left, I just, told me to take the step back, throw the right hand, took a step back. I threw the right hand. She went face down on the canvas. She tried to get back up, and she just dropped face down on the canvas again with 2 seconds left. And the arena went insane.
Buzzer beater knockout.
Dude, it was insane. So that's what got me into International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame. Got me Fight of the Year, Knockout of the Year. To this day, one of the greatest knockouts in sports. And it's really just catapulted my career from that point. Going to face Holly Holm after that, where I had to move up in weight. Gave up my belt, and that fight was, man, that fight was insane. She gave me a run for my money. We were dogging it out, but I will say this: if anything, I took the loss. And I'll say when I took a loss. I took a loss in France. I was not on my game at all. And I felt it. I definitely took the loss in France, 100%. That fight with Holly, if anything, it was a draw on the first fight. And when I came home, now that fight was covered on Fox Sports, Best Damn Sports Show. ESPN might have covered it. It had a lot of hype. It was the first time there was all-female card. And obviously all-female card and females were headlining it, right? Main event. So at the end of the fight, when I went home, my email was flooded with people that said they thought it was a draw or that I won. I don't know if I won. I won't say that. I will say that I was a lot cleaner than her after the fight. Holly, I love you. I do. I'll tell you a funny story that happened between us. But, I wanted the rematch. I wanted the rematch more than anything in the world. And if she took it again from me, cool. But I had to see. I'm like, and again, because I went up in weight. Like, she looked like a freaking beast when she got into the ring the next day. And I was like, shit. She's a lot bigger. I didn't care. I was like, let's go. So I was amped up and taking that loss, that loss crushed me because I really felt like I had it or I could have had it. So I wanted another shot at it. And, a couple of years had passed and it was at a time where I had maybe something like 6 fights in a row fall out. And it was just like, man, working my ass off. I'm like grinding. I'm like, wow, man, this sucks. Like, I want to get out there. Nothing's happening. Everything's just stagnant, right? So one of the guys that I work with, he's like, what are you doing? He's like, you give your life to everybody. You give your life to this career. He's like, but you're in the gym 24/7. He's like, do something for yourself. And it was this internal battle of, no, I need to do this. And I still have that, I go back, I'm like, did I let up on what I really should have done and just stayed committed and not make the decision that I made? I don't know. I still question that. But he was like, you always wanted a Harley. You always wanted a motorcycle. Let's go. Let's go get you one. It's like, let's go riding. And I was like, you know what? Yeah. You know what? Maybe I need to do that. So we did. And I'm at the dealership and I'm sitting on the bike. And the sales guy is telling me about it. And it's parked like on an angle, on an incline. And I must have moved. I looked over to my side or something, moved my right foot, and I could feel the bike starting to tip. I'm like, no. So I tried to move my leg again, but I didn't have the leverage for the bike. So I feel it going more. I put my arm down, just instinctual, and I'm like, I just bought this bike. I'm not going to crash.
Let it fall.
Boom, 1,200-pound bike on my right arm is not really a good situation. Didn't work out very well. I had my bike jacket on, but I felt like crack pop. Get back up, pull the bike back up. Like, no, I'm good. I'm telling myself I'm good. I take the bike back to the gym. Take my bike jacket off, and my elbow was like this big. I'm like, no, good. I'm good. Still, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I get the call for the rematch with Holly Holm.
Oh my god!
At that point in time.
Damn.
Like that week, I get the call for the rematch with Holly Holm. I was so upset. I was like, are you kidding me? I didn't have health insurance. I'm a stubborn athlete. I'm a stubborn individual. I'm going to do things. So I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to be good. I went to a friend of mine's physical therapy place. They're like, all right, can you do a plank? Can you hold yourself up? All the pain in the world in my arm. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Can you do a push-up? Jeez, damn it. I'm good. I got it. Did the push-up. All kinds of pain. Pushed through it. And then they did some testing, and it didn't show, but I guess it's because of all the inflammation, that there was a break or a fracture. It was really swollen. And they don't have like an MRI or anything in their place. They were using, I forget what it's called, like a vibration tool, whatever else, other stuff that they'll utilize to see if there's breaks and whatnot. And they were doing therapy on it, and I was crying bloody murder. Like, it did not feel right.
Yeah.
I finally go, I reach out to the doctor that put my body back together. And he yelled at me and told me to get in immediately, to which he then yelled at me some more. And he gave me the MRI. God bless him, didn't give it on him. He comped me that and told me I broke my right elbow.
Damn.
Yep, and I tore my tricep. And he gave me a brace. He's like, I know you're gonna, because again, he put me back together and he knows what I went
Yeah,
through.
you're gonna cut
I'm
this
not
shit
gonna
off.
do anything else. Like, I'm just gonna go forward. So I have my arm in this, what's called a bledsoe brace, and it allowed me to increase the range of motion throughout the weeks. And I'm just doing my own therapy, with bands and carrying weights around to keep the extension. And, and he told me, I was like, listen, should I do surgery to repair this? He's like, Amber, he's like, honestly, it's like with what you've done in the time that from when you broke it to now, because this has been weeks that had passed where I was doing my own therapy. He's like, you're honestly probably not going to get better than what you got. He's like, it's amazing that you have the ability to extend your arm to where you can now. And he was like, good job. But then he proceeded to yell at me for not coming in.
Right.
But, so it's still broken. It's still torn. The tricep's still torn. Now, 6 weeks later, I say, you know what? I got this. I can do this. And I get in the ring with Holly with a broken arm and torn tricep. And I'm thinking in my head, I can do this with one arm.
And I'm sure that's
And it's partly, honestly, it's partly because of the WBC is possibly partly at fault, because during that time span, I got invited to Wales for the WBC, something called the Night of the Champions.
Mm.
So all their major champions, they invite out for this whole black tie affair and, dinner and whatever. So I'm out there the 1 weekend in this time span. And there's a documentary they aired about a boxer that had one arm. And I'm like, this is a sign. I'm like, it's for me. I got this.
Like, yes, I can do it. That's me. That's going to be me.
Yeah, it was me. It did not work out well. They stopped the fight, and it was a terrible situation. But
I mean, it's hard to fight with one hand. I mean, it's funny. I know Holly because I saw what she did to Ronda Rousey. So I can just imagine.
And I love Holly. Let me tell you, I was in Vegas maybe 2 years back. I was working with with Macy Barber in UFC. She had a fight out there, and I was actually working with her virtually. I was training her virtually. She's in Sacramento.
Oh, wow.
And I flew out there a couple of times to work with her out there, and then we were doing everything else virtually. And I'm in Vegas, and it was the night of her fight, just did her shakeout. I'm going back down to my hotel room to get my stuff and go over to the arena. And as I get into the elevator, this guy in the elevator, he's like, you fought Holly Holm. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, do you know how I know that? And I'm like, you saw it? I was like, I don't know. He's like, no. He's like, I'm staying with Holly. She's upstairs. I was like, now I've wanted to talk to her for like the longest time, right? I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, no, she was talking about you all last night. I said, what? He's like, yeah, we were talking about you and, your career and everything. He's like, and she said that you're the toughest bitch she's ever fought. And I was like, I was laughing. I was like, you know what? I actually heard her say that in an interview. It was the toughest opponent that she's faced. At that time, she's gotten, way past that. But he was like, you want to come upstairs and say hi? I was like, absolutely. So we get out the elevator, go down the hallway, and I'm like leaning against the wall because I don't want her to see me because he wants to surprise her. And he's like, Holly, he's like, I got a friend of yours here. And she's like, really? So he waves me. I go, and we were like two high school girls, literally tears were hugging out, like all this emotion, and it was it was a crazy moment. Yeah, it was very, very cool.
I love that. I've always wondered this with boxers. How can you guys be beating the hell out of each other and then like
it's respect,
friends and love at the end? It's
respect, man. You're in there like, I'm gonna go toe to toe with you. There's no, and I'm not one that does any, of the trash talk and whatnot. Right. I'm gonna take your heart and your soul from you when I look at you and I stare down. That's legit how I am. And I'm gonna respect anybody who's willing to go into, and in any sport, on the mat, in the ring, in the cage with you and battle that out. Like, there's a mutual respect for that. You're both going after the same thing.
Yeah. You
both have gone through. Obviously, everybody has their own story and journey, but in general, like, the same path to get there, right? And the same stresses and adversities. They may differ, but they're the same.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a respect issue. At the end of the day, like, I mean, after Juliana Brzenovich is the fighter I was talking about in Canada. I mean, after the fight, we went out to the fights, and she was buying me drinks afterwards, and we were in the club at the after party just hanging out. I mean, that's what it is. There's no true animosity. It's a love and it's a respect, and as I said, to anybody that I fought. Everybody that I fought, I have nothing but respect for them, and that's why it was just all that emotion is built up when you see each other, because we battled it out twice, it's even more so, just that emotion is just overflowing when it has, that amount of time has passed too, and just love.
I love that. That's great. As we close, I'd love to hear about your life now. Like, how is it going coaching? How, any of your fighters you're excited about? I know
Oh,
you
man,
mentioned
I'm
one
excited for
on the way
everybody.
on the way in.
And I'm just, yeah, I mean, I'm blessed. I'm following the path and continuing to build what I've wanted to, which is, like I spoke earlier with Rise, and just that brand, and being that coach that is not just, the physical aspect of the game, but the mental aspect of the game as well. And I'm I'm the anomaly, right? I'm the enigma. Like, I've done this.
Right.
Right. So I've gone through everything that I've gone through, and I'm not taking away from anybody. Everybody has their journey and everybody has their stuff, but I've gone through a lot of stuff outside on all levels, right? Emotionally, growing up, poverty, car accident, near death experience, like, and now I've gone through everything in the ring, and going through to becoming, 3-time world champion, like pound for pound ranked top 10 in the world after that car accident, after being
Which is
right,
nuts.
and then being a strength conditioning coach, performance specialist, and doing that since I've been blessed to have the opportunity at 17 years old. And since that time, like now being in the industry going on 30 years, having again, just blessing. I'm so grateful to work with some of the biggest names in the industry on all different levels, working with all different athletes from Olympic softball to Olympic judo to, UFC, bare knuckle, professional boxing, NFL, collegiate football. I've worked across the gamut to general population that, I've had massive transformation stories of women that was completely obese who still to this day reaches out to me, and she's competing on fitness circuit. She still has,
Wow.
yeah, she and how I've changed her life. And again, that's not doing this. I don't ever want to. I want to give out like this is possible for anybody if you follow your path, right? So changing her life to another individual that I worked with that was a national caliber soccer player that multiple injuries, overweight, to winning her pro card in her very first bikini and figure competition that she won. So it's like when you have to a gentleman that was bedridden really from a car accident, was on a walker and a cane, to putting on 100 pounds, to dropping that 100 pounds and being back in the gym and lifting. So it's on those avenues that I'm blessed to do what I do and want to build Rise to be something greater than just, like I said, that physical and all the avenues that it stands for. Um, I'm blessed to have the fighters that I have working with me right now. Working with fighters again in the UFC, in bare knuckle, and fighters coming up to that, because that's really like that's the cream of the crop right there, because you get the ability to build these guys up and watch them through that journey.
Right.
And that's what I'm real happy about right now, because I have Justin Ibarola, who is bare knuckle fighter, who is somebody I saw him fight in his first pro fight, pro debut, and when I saw him, I was like, I need this kid. I saw something and I'm like, I need to work with him. And it was funny because shortly after that, he actually reached out to me and he's like, I want to work with you. And we've been like this. Right, we're completely locked in. He's coming off of 4-0 in BKFC right now.
Wow.
2 knockouts in a row, one of the fastest knockouts in the BKFC, and his career is just exploding right now.
Great,
to be a part of that journey from the get, awesome. Elia Carranza, who again, somebody that I met when I first moved here, and again, we had that just instant connection. A year later, reached out to me, I want to work with you. She was just starting out in her pro career. And she's coming off of 2 knockouts. She just got ranked number 3 in the world and number 4 in the world, 2 different federations. Currently WBC, Latin Continental Champion, and just climbing. She's going to be a world champion. Like, he's going to be a BKFC champion, 100%. She's going to be a world champion. And to be a part of that from the beginning and that whole process and that journey, and be there for them, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and have been in the ring and go through that process, like, it's just another level that I'm just grateful to, be a part of. And then I have my PFL fighter, Alexei Pargrande, who's fighting on my birthday, August 2nd. I don't know where it is, the location is on that. He just told me he just got the notice. So, it's everything is really good right now. I got 1, 2, 3 of my fighters all, coming off knockouts. Everybody's been on a winning streak for the past 3 or 4 years. Got to work with Rashad Evans, UFC Hall of Fame, in his comeback fight out of retirement with Eagle FC. Came out with the win. My black belt BJJ artist, winning the Pan Am Games, and then getting his black belt. He's dealing with a ACL injury right now, recovery from surgery with that. But So yeah, I mean, I'm just excited for all of them, and just to be and their energy of, who I get to work with, and who is drawn to work with me. I have a really tight unit.
That's great, man. I'm so happy for you because I know it's really rewarding. It's almost like everything's coming full circle. You
For
didn't
sure.
really have that Ann-Marie in your corner, so now
Yeah.
you can be that for other people, and
For
just to
sure.
see them thriving and seeing success. That's great.
There's no greater, fulfillment than that. Being able to be a part of that and just watch it all unfold, and watch them go through the training and go through, just life in general, and being able to be there for them to facilitate their ability to get through that and look at things from a different lens. And even with Ellie, I mean, God bless her, man. She talk about grinding. This girl is a chosen one. She is so special. She is not only on her road to becoming a world champion, but she's also a deputy with BSO. She also owns Level Up Boxing in Fort Lauderdale. Business owner. I mean, you look at that grind, and to be a part of that, to just hold all that together and be like, hold her down, be in her corner, no matter what, I got you. It's a blessing. But again, like, if I hadn't gone through and looked at things the way that I have, and circumstances and the adversities I've dealt with in building even my business, I can't be there for them the way that I can be now. Right. So I'm grateful for that.
That's amazing. And I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah,
It's
I appreciate
been
you.
inspirational. It's been motivational.
Oh, thank you.
And honestly, it just shows you again what humans are really possible. And so thank you for that. Where can people keep up with you? And then if they want to check out any of your documentaries or anything like that, where can they find them?
You guys can reach out to me on Instagram, am_Saccarauto, or at rise_performance_. The documentaries, there's 2 documentaries out. One is PBS. The name on it was In the Life is the name of the documentary series. A Ring of Their Own is the title on that episode. The other one was done on Logo. I don't recall. It was aired on MTV2 when that was around, and Logo. Find it online. I don't recall, but that's the one that actually followed me to the Holly Holm fight, to the first Holly Holm fight. The song on iTunes is actually entitled My Name, Ann-Marie. It's by Tokyo Rosenthal. And what else can I give you guys? That's really it. Reach out to me, you guys interested in working with me personally. I also do online training, do virtual sessions. I do travel out for camps, for fight camps, for assessments. But reach out to me. I got a lot of options. Not just you don't have to be a fighter or specialize in working with combat and tactical athletes. So I work a lot with BSO, with military, with police, but Gen Pop as well. Like I said, I'm a game changer. That's what I'm here to do, to change lives and to get everybody that say with Rise to rise up to greatness.
Amazing. Ann-Marie, thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for your time, Jordan. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.